Thank you for joining us. You are watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
It's my favorite part to see the video screens just like pop up. So fun. So hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion. We're going to talk about resilience in your job search, and we have an awesome panel today. So with that, let's take advantage of this opportunity and go ahead and drop your LinkedIns into the chat. Tell us where you are located. Let's connect. Let's grow our networks. So this webinar today, okay, there's Christian. This webinar today is sponsored by Computer Coach. And at Computer Coach, we are headquartered in Tampa Bay. So tell us, where are you at? One of my favorite things about online webinars at this point is that we get participants from all over the country. And I get to really enhance my geography skills, which is super awesome. Every time I'm on Tuesdays, Thursdays, sometimes on Fridays, we run a lot of webinars at Computer Coach. I get to learn about new places in the country. So with that, go ahead, drop in your LinkedIns, drop in where you're at. To our panelists, please drop in your LinkedIns also so that we can connect. I'm going to drop mine in. Now, we do have the Q&A open today, so you are welcome to use the Q&A. If you are like me, you will have a question that just pops up as we are talking. If I don't write it down, it will fly right out of my mind. So do use the Q&A. You can use the chat. The chat is a little bit more difficult for us, but I will get through all of our questions, and we will save our questions to the end. All right, so with that, I see your LinkedIn's coming in. Thank you so much. And we are going to get started with our panel discussion. So if we have not met, I am Suzanne Ricci, and I have the pleasure of being the executive director at Computer Coach, where we provide a variety of technology training courses, certification preparation courses, upskilling, continuing education courses. We specialize in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills that they need to land the jobs that they're looking for. For me, I have done this for over 23 years. I've helped thousands of professionals at this point land the jobs that they are looking for. And one of the things that I know is that job searching is hard. And it can really drain you. It is a tedious process. It is not a perfect process. And I was talking to Danielle Ori, our Director of Career Services at Computer Coach, who is here with us today. And I said to her, you know what? I would love to have a panel on resilience in your job search. So resilience is something that we talk about in life, right? I think one of the best presentations that we had at one point, it was a guest speaker who came on to talk about resilience. And she talked about resilience in using a metaphor of a basketball, right? When we put a basketball down, it bounces back up. And that's what we want to try to develop in our lives in general. But job searching adds a whole nother layer of stress. It has a whole nother layer of issues in it. And the truth is that we're often surrounded by people in our lives who are not in the same situation. And so sometimes we may have people around us going, well, why can't you just get a job? And I have seen that. Probably the worst situation I have ever seen in my career is years and years and years ago. We were still in person at that point, and a gentleman walked into the training center where I was, and he asked, are you looking for instructors by any chance? And he happened to have his little girl with him. And at that point, we were not looking for instructors. And I said, no, I'm sorry. Actually, we are fully staffed. However, I will take your resume. And the little girl looks at me and goes, oh, well, that's good because he needs a job. My mommy says he has to get a job. And I was shocked. I tried not to make a facial expression. I looked at this man's face and he was just beyond sad with the situation. And I knew, because how many job seekers I interact with, how difficult the situation was. And I knew how difficult his home life must have been at that moment, because they were not understanding how difficult and how much resilience you need in a job search. So with all of that, that is how we came to today's topic. And so I sat down with Danielle and I said, you know what? We need to talk about not just resilience in life. We need to talk about resilience specifically in the job search. And we happen to be so fortunate to have 3 individuals. We have more, but 3 of some of my favorite individuals in our life that really demonstrated an immense amount of resilience in their job searches. And I knew that from going through their journeys with them. Now, I think this is really important to know that 2 of the 3 panelists that we have invited are not technically Computer Coach customers. So I don't want everybody to think like, oh, these are just Computer Coach customers. They are not. So Christian is actually a Computer Coach customer, but Maria, Vanessa, and Alyssa are not. And that was really important for me for today, because I wanted to really have an authentic conversation about how do you develop resilience in your job search and how do you keep pushing through. So with that, I am going to let our panelists introduce themselves, because they do such a better job than I do. So just because of the way you are situated on my screen, no rhyme or reason. Maria, Vanessa, go first. Tell us about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your job search and why I invited you here today.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out of hopefully your lunch break or your day to be here with us and listen to our journeys. So my name is Maria Vanessa. I've had a long journey. I recently just went through, I guess, my second time of job search here in the Tampa Bay in the last few years. And they were both very difficult. So I'm going to try to summarize, but basically about early 2019, before the pandemic, when I started networking in the Tampa Bay tech community, I ended up meeting Suzanne, and it was a good year plus before I found my first job moving back to Tampa. I did a boot camp, and through the boot camp, I invited people I knew in the community to our graduation. And at that graduation, someone made a connection. I ended up meeting my future CEO and CTO that day. And a few weeks later, as the pandemic started, shutting things down, they're like, we still don't know how we want to hire you, for what we want to hire you, but we want you to work with us. So that was really great. And just recently, sadly, I had to be laid off after 3 years with the company. I know it wasn't an easy decision for them to make, but the CEO actually helped introduce me to now my current CEO. Not to say I didn't network and apply my butt off. So that's kind of a short resume of this. Like I said, I've known Suzanne since the beginning of my journey, and her and the rest of the Computer Coach team have always been very supportive, have always been very friendly, open to introduce me to new people in the network. And I actually think, Suzanne, you were the one who introduced me to Joey, who of course I met Anitra through, and Anitra was the one who introduced me to my previous CEO and CTO. So thank you for that. Yeah, and I am, like I said, currently with a new position. So I am new title Program Director of Pulse Charter Connect, currently going through its second accelerator to get some more funding so we can get this startup growing. So I'll leave it at that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So one, I want to point out that Maria Vanessa did go through a boot camp. It was not Computer Coaches boot camp, which I'm just a little bitter, but not that bitter.
I still love you.
I still love you, or you wouldn't be here. But I do, I say all the time, like, look, of course, we want you to become a Computer Coach customer, but you do not have to be a Computer Coach customer to be in our lives. We are really about elevating tech professionals in general. So you are a perfect example of that. So what I do want to know, though, Maria Vanessa, how long, so your former CEO introduced you to your current CEO, right? So that was a great referral. But how long were you job searching? Because from the time you were laid off, you had applied for quite a few jobs and you were still out networking and trying to make things happen, even though your CEO had introduced you to a new CEO. So talk to me about that.
Yes. So I started going back and networking a little bit more than I was before and applying during my last month because I did kind of have a month head start before I was laid off. So basically, they were like, you have till the end of April. That's as long as we can give you. So I started in April. I didn't work May and June. And I ended up starting the second week of July, but I had already accepted the offer by the end of June. So essentially 3 months of searching, 2 months of being laid off, which was a really quick turnaround. I have a lot of friends that are also in the Scrum Master project management world, and anywhere from 6 to 9 months minimum by the time I started looking. So probably longer by now if they haven't found jobs yet. So yeah, I was, still networking, still applying. Most of my applications are through resources, connections, networks, people I know that are at the companies. I don't like cold applying or your favorite, the spray and pray.
Spray and pray. Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion. I did apply to a few cold applications, but it's not my favorite. And I actually got through several interviews because of knowing someone at the company and ended up getting 2 job offers at the end of the day. So
that's awesome. So we're going to put that takeaway down that referrals are golden. I think I say that every Tuesday in Tuesday job search strategy webinar series. Every single Tuesday, referrals are golden if you can get one. But also that, getting out there and networking is super important. So Christian, tell us about your job search journey and why you are here on today's panel, because you have demonstrated some serious resilience since I met you.
Thank you. Yeah, so when I first moved to Tampa and still a young guy, I really just dumb lucked into this niche industry job, this domain parking job, which was a bubble. It was very uncorporate and managed to have it for 12 years. And it was fun while it lasted. And then the faucet turned off basically on that bubble, or bad metaphor, but a bunch of us were laid off. And what I basically didn't know is I didn't really know anything about being in the corporate world. And so I didn't know this at the time, but my resume sucked, didn't really have a LinkedIn, Suzanne told me I was too honest in interviews and didn't know how to deal with recruiters. And so I really had to learn everything. And then also I was a customer computer coach. I took the PMP project manager class, and then I took the C#.NET backend class. And so it really was a complete career change for me. But it was 9 months to the day from the day I was laid off to the day I got an offer at ConnectWise in Tampa. But yeah, 9 months, over 100 applications. And so it was tough. And I didn't know that everything I was doing was bad until later. So when you keep hearing no, you don't know what it is you're doing wrong. But I especially remember, when you get to a point when you get to that many rejections, it really is like getting punched in the gut, more somehow. And so I remember when I was at Computer Coach, one thing I really wanted to hear, and this is why I'm here, is one thing I really would have loved is to have Computer Coach alumni and basically be like, tell me your happy ending story. Tell me how you struggled and then you got there, because I need to believe in something. I need to believe that I can get there. And but toward the end, that was really my hardest problem. And this is a panel about resiliency. You have other panels about how to actually do the LinkedIn and how to actually do the resume. But mine was really like, how do you keep going when you keep getting rejected? But so what I can tell you as a, success story is, like I said, the first time, that first layoff, 9 months, I ended up getting a job at ConnectWise. It is still my favorite job I ever had. But a year after it, with COVID, I got laid off from that. So 9 months the first time, 9 weeks the second time to get another job at AACSB here in Tampa. And then was with that job for a while. It wasn't a match for the technical skills I wanted. Ended up taking another contract job for 6 months. And then when that one ended, it took me 9 days to get the job I'm in now. So 9 months, 9 weeks, 9 days, pretty good progression, I think.
Absolutely. And Christian, in all fairness and all honesty, your situation and me really realizing that a lot of times job seekers don't know how to find a job in the modern workforce, right? You were at the same company for 12 years. Why would you know what a resume is supposed to look like, right? Your situation is actually one of the things that led me to create our Tuesday job search strategy webinar series, where now originally they were just for Computer Coach customers, but then during COVID, when so many people were getting laid off across the country, and it was just like this crazy spiral effect that was impacting so many people around us, we opened them up to the public. And that is why we are here today, because our guest speaker panels and our guest speaker series on Thursdays grew out of the job search strategy webinars on Tuesday, because watching your job search, yes, I had the information. I had so much experience helping so many other people, but it was like a very real, reminder to me that job seekers need to understand how to find a job in the modern workforce. And you know what? Nobody wants to know that until you really need it, honestly. And I know that. And that's why I'm here, right? So I'll keep up to date with how you do it. You guys all keep working at the jobs that you love. All right. So Christian, thank you for joining us. Alyssa, tell us about your story.
I was just laughing when you were sharing about people not knowing how to look for a job. When I first graduated from college, my dad suggested that I check the classifieds in the newspaper, because the last time he had looked for a job was 30 years into his career, right? So I learned that the hard way. I did all I could do, but it was referrals, right? That ultimately got me my first job out of college, my first career move. And I started as the campus recruiter with Northwestern Mutual, where I worked for 6 years. So I was in the world of HR, but I was not updating my resume or looking for other opportunities, because I loved the organization I worked for and I loved my job. 6 years after I graduated, you guessed it, was 2020. So ultimately, I was a delayed layoff. It was late into 2020 that my department was eliminated, and I had no idea what to do, but just kind of practice what I preached to my candidates and was networking. And I was laid off in October, and I landed my new position in December. So it was about 3 months, which was pretty quick, but I was very well networked and had a very specific job target. And what I was looking for was very accessible during the pandemic. So I ended up working for a tech company, which is how I met Suzanne. So I worked in tech for a cybersecurity company, doing recruiting on campus, as well as running their scholarship programs and other events and partnerships. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And we know what happened after that. And this year, all the tech layoffs started. So I was laid off again. And my dad was like, this has got to be rare. Like, this doesn't happen. And then he just sent me an article the other day, like, this girl got laid off 3 times this year. She was like 3 months into her new role. And they were like, by the way, we can't keep you. So he was like, never mind, this isn't rare anymore. So I love that we're having these conversations and kind of normalizing, like 50% of the workforce at some point will be laid off if they have not already. So I've been laid off twice. And the second time around, I didn't learn from my mistakes the first time. And I dabbled a little too much in everything and entertained a lot of things. I did a lot of volunteering, a lot of networking. I launched a podcast. I just tried to dabble in as much as I could. And I think because of that, it took me a little bit longer the second time around. I was laid off in January of this year and didn't land my new role until like the middle of May. So it was a little bit longer, probably about 4 months. But funny enough, I'm like a boomerang. I ended up back at Northwestern Mutual. So I'm working for a district office instead of the network office. And I'm doing full-time recruiting instead of campus recruiting. And so I've been here since May, and now I'm actually even entertaining conversations about consulting for other offices and continuing my career journey. So trying to practice what I tell you guys today.
Awesome. So you just brought up something that's going to lead me to our next question, right? Your dad, right? Bless his heart, was like, look in the classified, right? Yep. And you know what? That's what he did. And that is what you did. And a lot of times in our life, those that love us the most give us really bad job search advice because they don't know, right? But then you also said that your dad, again, bless his little heart, says, oh, this must be so rare you're getting laid off, which honestly,
Yeah.
I got to be honest, Alyssa, that must have hurt.
Yeah.
Like, it must have been like a little sting for sure. That, and
Yeah.
I know he didn't mean for it to sting,
Definitely.
but I could imagine that it absolutely hurt when, you know, your dad said that. So I would love to know just one or two. What do you think some challenges that job seekers face that can be particularly draining on their resilience?
Yeah. I
Will
mean,
your
just kind of like you
split-
said, having those family members that may not necessarily understand the struggle. You know, my mom was laid off when 9/11 happened. She was a travel agent. So my
Oh.
mom understood like how volatile the job market can be with all the changes that happen. Whereas my dad has worked in construction. Like even during COVID, there's always a need for what he did. And so he didn't understand that. So I think for me, I have learned to really rely on data and numbers and articles and research as much as possible. I love to read, like my fellow panelists here who are obviously bibliophiles as well with their growing bookshelves. So I really relied on a lot of books when I was doing the job searching process. And now even as someone who's happily employed, I don't stop because I love this industry and I love being able to help people in my spare time to find, you know, the next opportunity. So there are some really great books that have been out there for a long time. And then there are books that are coming out that are newer. There's podcasts, there's YouTube channels, there's a ton of resources that we have that my dad did not have when he was a speaker that I try to rely on because it, like I said, kind of normalizes and lets us know that other people are going through it too. So finding that community, whether it's signing up for a newsletter, there's a ton of like recruiter influencers now on LinkedIn and TikTok that share a lot of resources and information that's just kind of pouring data over your head. So for me, I like to reflect, and this is what I tell a lot of people that I mentor and I work with is focus on facts, not feelings. I may be feeling like I'm the only person going through this, or I may feel like this is impossible, but let me look at the data. Let's look at the facts. And we know that 50% of people experience a layoff at some point. So when you're doing the job search, personally, I feel like there's nothing wrong with saying from the rooftops, I was laid off because there are other people here who have gone through that. Yeah. And Danielle made a great post about that this week and was saying like, you should be okay to post about that you're open to work. There's nothing to be ashamed of, that you're open to new opportunities. So I know those are a few right there.
No, I love that. And actually focus on facts, not feelings is a great takeaway from today. So that is another lovely takeaway. So you know what, Alyssa, if you want to take a minute and write some of those books in the chat for our friends that have joined us, that would be awesome. I'm going to let you have some time to do that while I have a conversation with Christian and Maria Vanessa. So Christian, tell me what's one or two things that you think is a common challenge that job seekers face. Alyssa talked to us about, you know, family not really understanding the situation you're in.
Yeah, I would say it kind of boils down to, I don't want to say hoping too much, but maybe putting too much hope in one basket. That if you're kind of putting all your emotional weight into a particular job and you don't get it, it kind of knocks you back. I'd say employers that take a long time to give you any kind of feedback of where am I, how am I doing, that's pretty rough. Recruiters that say, I guarantee I'll get back to you tomorrow, and you never hear from them again, that's really knocks you for a loop. And then just, you know, out of that can become, you know, negative talk, either negative self-talk about like, oh, I don't have what it takes, or this is too hard for me to do. Anything that is dragging you down from getting to the goal, which is getting the job.
Sure. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with customers and friends at this point, right? People in my network where I say, great, you had an interview. That's not a job offer. Keep looking, you know, or you had a call. Don't stop just because someone has a call. I tell people you don't stop looking until literally you have sat down in the desk and you have a computer. Because I have customers who have literally showed up for their first day of work and it's like, oh, you know what? We had to take that position away. I'm so sorry. You're going to have to go home now. So It happens. So, Maria, Vanessa, what do you think? One or two things that is particularly challenging that really drains job seekers?
I'm going to start with what you just said. Someone would be in very much trouble if that happened to me.
Oh, it's
Because that would be beyond draining. That would be like heart-wrenching to walk in your first day of work and you don't have work.
Yeah, so I will tell you, even worse than that was the customer who worked 2 weeks for a startup, and the startup couldn't afford to pay their employees. Yeah. So that was really like, I mean, because again, I have done this for so long, I am fortunate to be in a situation where generally when I run into people that are having difficulties in their job search, I have helped so many others that have had those same difficulties that I know what's going on. But at the same time, I have a basket full of stories that are like, wow, you would never want that to happen.
The one-offs. Yeah, those definitely would be very heart-wrenching. I can say that from my 2 experiences of job searching, it was drastically different, but at the same time not. Obviously, the no email or callbacks is a few points off emotionally. I think that's really the biggest one in both my experiences, really just not hearing back from people. It's hurtful because yes, people are busy. Hiring managers and recruiters are dealing with a bunch of people at the same time, but you're a human. Like, just send me an email like, hey, been busy, you're still in the running. Or, hey, sorry, I don't know, you didn't make it. Like, something. Let me know, yes or no. The no hurts. And of course, hearing a lot of no's just stacks up on that hurt. But sometimes I feel like it's better to know than being ghosted by professionals. Yeah. Like, a lot of women, and hurts even more at at my age in their 30s, being ghosted by guys all the time from applications. And then now you're getting ghosted by professionals too. That just adds on to the emotional drainage. The big one for me, which I mentioned earlier, that was a huge emotional drain, was the cold application or the spray and pray. To me, that takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of consideration of where I want to apply. Not everybody makes it easy where you could just upload your resume and you're done. You're uploading your resume and then filling out their application with all the information in your resume.
Yeah, it's time intensive for sure.
Yes. And then if you're smart, not everybody does this, but you're trying to reach out to the person that posted it, maybe if it's an online job posting site or on LinkedIn, some kind of hiring manager. So that takes time away. And then you don't hear back from the application. You don't hear back from that person. Again, it just adds on to the emotional hurt, the emotional drainage of, why am I even bothering? Why am I even doing this? Am I even good enough for what I'm applying? Maybe one thing which I learned very early on, and I just had to learn how to write a good enough resume, is because I just learned I don't translate very well into a resume. My resume does not show my actual skill sets. And Suzanne, I know that might make more sense to you than anybody else. I can't show off my personality.
Though. A lot of people fall into that situation. And I would tell you that's why networking has worked so well for you.
Exactly.
Sure.
Because I'm able to showcase my personality and my resilience and my, just what I'm good at in person to people. So even if the person hiring me doesn't know me that well, they're able to take away from the person that did refer me, that did introduce me, that, wow, this person must be amazing if they're choosing out of their whole network to introduce me to this one person. So that's been really my saving grace, I think, through my networking. It's just, I love meeting people. Even if I'm not looking for a job, I still love networking. I still love going to events when I can. It's been a little more difficult recently for multiple reasons, but I still like to be out there and now be able to help others if I can, because it's been so good to me. So, and then with the family situation, I thankfully have a supportive family, but them not quite understanding sometimes the tech world, or when I was becoming a scrum master, what a scrum master even was, or why being looking for a scrum master role was so difficult, because everybody in the scrum world seems like they were laid off within the last 6 months to a year. I know way too many scrum masters that were looking for jobs. So that part of it, I think, was a little hard for them to understand and try to help in. But as far as support emotionally of looking for a job and knowing that it's difficult, at least I had that much. Just, it's a little difficult when you specify it to tech or scrum or stuff like that. But
so now you guys brought up the G word, ghosted. And I don't think there's a job seeker out there that doesn't feel like that is incredibly draining. That is probably one of the things that I hear most often, right? Is the ghosting, the ghosting, the ghosting. So I want to touch on this and give an actual tangible takeaway for our friends that are with us today. So one, there is a difference between in-house corporate recruiters generally falling into the talent acquisition world and they fall under the titles of talent acquisition generally. And then you have recruiters or staffing companies. They all ghost. I know that. But I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, panelists, staffing companies ghost the most. Like when we talk about ghosting, generally it's like staffing companies that we hear about the most. So I have a friend. His name is Dennis Laughlin. Dennis Laughlin was in staffing for 25 years or something like that. Dennis, I invited him to do a webinar for me when I think it was probably during COVID or whatever. Dennis gave the best presentation on how to work with staffing companies.
Agree. One of the best ones I've ever heard. Fantastic.
Yes. He gave all of the secrets away. Like, you talk about roll that beautiful bean footage. Dennis was that dog. Okay. Yeah. He gave out all the secrets. He gave out all the tips and tricks. And we are so blessed that is still on Computer Coach's blog. So I put it up. It's still relevant to this day. If you know how to work with staffing recruiters, that will increase your resilience all on its own. Christian, do you agree? Because I know
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the first ones, and I said it early, having too much hope. One of the first ones I had, I actually went and met with a recruiter on my birthday and said, trying to get me something, said she'll get back to me. And I really just hung on for way, way too long with this first recruiter that I met. And I'm going to insult some recruiters, but many of them are a dime a dozen. Yeah. And so one thing I really learned from that seminar is pretty much, if you have tried, I think twice, to get in touch with a recruiter and you're not getting anything back, out of your life, just done. There are too many people out there who can help you that you don't need to waste your time with people who don't.
So that webinar is on computercoach.com/blog. And, I'm going to tell you kind of a little secret since, it's just us friends here today. And sure, this is being recorded, but Dennis showed up to the presentation with just a yellow notebook. And I literally had to start yoga breathing, because I was like, is he prepared? What is he going to say? There's no PowerPoint. This is madness. And you can hear from me. You can hear from Christian. I have plenty of customers who have come back to me and said, I successfully got a job through X staffing company because of that particular presentation, because he tells you the questions to ask. He tells you how to vet the recruiters. It is literally, it tells you everything about the staffing industry. So with that, we have a question. That is one of the takeaways for friends today. Alyssa, what advice do you have for job seekers to keep their resilience going if they've been ghosted over and over and over? My advice is go watch that video. You don't even need to watch it. You can listen to it. Like, go for a walk and just listen to it. Because honestly, he doesn't have a slide deck, so you don't have to stare at him. You just need to know what he says. Go and watch that video, because honestly, I have never, and again, I've done this for so long, I have never seen anybody articulate the staffing industry as well as he did and teach us how to work with them as job seekers. So, Alyssa, what do you have?
I got a couple things. So I looked at some articles because again, I love to look at data and I don't want to just give my opinions on things. And I can give some tips as well. But there was an article I found this morning, and I'll drop the link in the chat, that Glassdoor found on average for corporate job postings, they're going to attract about 250 resumes, and maybe 4 to 6 of those will get called to an interview, and then one person may get the job. So the spray and pray thing is not always the best, and there are ways to improve your chances of not just spraying and praying, but it is a bit of a numbers game, right? So that's where I continue to say, focus on facts, not feelings. For me, when I was going through the process this time around, you have to give yourself grace, because there is a lot of rejection, right? Just out the gate, there is a lot of ghosting. So the first thing I did was I made a spreadsheet to track all of my applications. And kind of like Christian was saying, if there were no signs of life after a few attempts of being like, hey, me again, did you get my application? Or, hey, we had that initial screening and I haven't heard anything. If you try, to be pleasantly persistent, because we're people too, and I sit in that recruiter seat now, and I will take all the insults you want to hurl, because they are absolutely true. We deal with a lot of people, and we are humans as well. So we can only manage so much. We make mistakes. We drop the ball. And there are times where I'm like, oh my God, I didn't send the decline email and it's been 2 weeks. I will go ahead and send it. And I feel like a jerk after that much time. So I try my best not to do that. But I think focusing on the data and tracking it as much as you can, and linking the job description, and you can click on it and see if it's closed, right? And then like they're reviewing the candidates when the job posting goes down, or maybe they hired someone. And that helps you to continue to move on and keep pushing forward and doing more of those applications. But for me, you have to give yourself grace, and you can kind of do 2 things at once. I am not a huge fan of multitasking, but it is useful when you can do it properly. So like Suzanne said, give yourself a little mental health walk, but listen to the podcast while you're doing it. Some of us live here in Florida. Some of us like the beach, not me so much because I'm very pasty, but go to the beach and bring the book that I mentioned. I'm halfway through it, so I can't even tell you if it's that amazing yet, but I got my Grogu note bookmark in it, so at least I have that. But I'm halfway through and I love it. I go to Disney World and I read this when I'm in the queue. I'm sitting in line and everyone goes, God, that's so smart to bring a book when you're waiting in line at Disney. You're waiting for the fireworks, you want to reserve your spot. It's low lighting, but you can read, So there are ways where you can give yourself a mental health break. Go to a theme park. If you're already paying for the ticket, you can't cancel it. You might as well go. You know what I mean? So you can multitask in a way where you give yourself a break, but you're also sharpening your skills. You're listening to a podcast. You're giving yourself a break. So I have a ton of examples of that. And then one other thing, I am really bad at giving myself a pep talk. I'm really good at doing it for other people, and I'm very good at calling other people and being like, hey, I need you to kick me in the butt a little bit. But sometimes you can't get in touch with somebody, and sometimes you've already asked them 3 times that week and you don't want to do it again. So there's an app that I am obsessed with called I Am. And there's a free version you can download, and you can customize it to be whatever aesthetic you want it to be. And you can customize what kind of affirmations it sends you and how frequently it does it. So when I was a job seeker, I had it send me 1 every hour because that was how I felt I was getting a rejection once every hour. So this is what it looks like. Here's one that maybe you can see. It says, I accept the things I cannot change. And then it'll say, I'm willing to believe that things will always work out, even if it doesn't feel like that right now, right? So they're very broad. It could apply to anything, personally, professionally. Somebody said dating, right? It could apply to a lot of different things. So if you're not good at giving yourself affirmations, when you're getting so much rejection, facing a lot of ghosting, get it from a friend or family member, or, there's an app for that. So
That is great that you just said that. So, I really have no idea what your guys' answers are to these questions that I have in front of me, right? But it's really funny, or I guess kind of like interesting, Alyssa, that you just said that, because I was going through a very difficult time at one point in my life. And I used to write out affirmations on index cards, and I used to have them in my purse. And I would literally, there were times I pulled them out at a stop sign or a stoplight, and I would like go through them really quick, right?
Oh,
Them in the grocery store line. And actually, Computer Coach, every Monday on our social media, we put out job seeker affirmations.
oh, that's awesome.
Realize that they're job seeker affirmations. I don't know, but we do it because I realized how much they helped me be resilient and to bounce back. And so I love that. So Christian,
I still have my notebook of, it was basically like, what I was going to get to is basically like a daily effort, a daily gratitude, and a daily affirmation, or some sort of inspirational quote. And I still have it. If it's not in here, it's in the other room. I'm sorry, what were you going to ask me, Suzanne? I started running.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, if you have any tips for that, that's fine. But I was going to ask you, are there any potential pitfalls or behaviors to watch out for that can hinder your resilience during a job search? Because your first job search was 9 months. Hindsight being 2020. What do you think is like a behavior or like something to really be aware of? Like this behavior, if you go through this path, is going to literally drain your resilience.
The click to apply, again, just not knowing any better and not adapting my resume to the job didn't help. Any other behaviors? I stopped going to the gym. That's bad for you. That keeps your mood up. But I do think having the affirmation is good, because if all you're getting is the negative, it's bad. And I'm going to link a book. I'm going to mention a book in the chat. The thing I was going to say, I'm a Little League baseball coach, and baseball is all about failure and constant failure. And one thing I tell the guys a lot is, I am watching your effort, not the results. Okay. If the effort is there, the results will happen. And Alyssa, there's a lot of crying in baseball.
In Little League.
I appreciate the movie quote, but there's a lot of crying in baseball. But so same thing I would say for the job search. If you didn't get the job, but you can honestly take a look in the mirror and say, hey, I really did my best with getting my resume right. I really did as best as I could in that interview. Then you can be proud of yourself and understand that sometimes these things still happen. I know there were a couple of times where I had interviews that felt like a disaster. And I remember talking with Roger at Wenslaff at Computer Coach and with you, Suzanne, and telling them how it went, and them telling me something like, will they ask you this for this role? I said, yeah. And they're like, and you need to ask a couple more questions. They sounds like they didn't run a good interview.
Why is the man around?
Yeah. So
stupid things like that.
If you gave your best, I want to say you're not a failure. I mean, learning from failure is still good, but if you gave your best, then you can be proud of that. So being proud of your best efforts.
Christian, you brought up a really good point of behavior to really watch out for, right? Like stopping doing things that you enjoy during your job search is not a good thing. I am passionate that job seekers should not be sitting behind their computers 8 hours a day looking for jobs. You should be taking that walk, and as Alyssa said, listening to some type of podcast or something that is about your industry to improve your interviewing skills, because the more you know about your industry, the better you're going to interview. Stopping going to the gym is not a good idea. And you know what? In Florida, we have so much ability to be outside year round that you don't really need a gym membership if that is, the situation. You can still exercise outside. For me, a red flag is, maintain your schedule. So Maria Vanessa, do you have any red flags to look for? I don't want to give away yours. I'll give away mine after.
Oh, goodness. Well, some of the red flags mentioned already were good. Definitely, it's hard to keep an exact schedule when your life has been, obviously turned upside down with a layoff, but keeping some sort of routine does help. I'm not an avid exerciser. I actually personally do not have a good, healthy relationship with gyms, but I do walk my dog every evening when I'm in town. I do travel a lot, but I do walk my dog in the evenings. I do try to, go out a few times during the day to the backyard with him and take some sun in so I'm not locked inside. The sitting at a computer all day applying, I totally agree with you. That is probably another draining factor. I always vouch for networking more than sitting at a computer all day. Another red flag is just when you're doing the self bad talk. I'm gonna not use the worst word, but yeah, I love the reflections and the affirmations and the positive quotes that everybody brought up. I do have an app that kind of helps me with focusing on tasks, and it does give me affirmations every time I log in, or some sort of positive quote. So that's been very helpful, because probably one of the biggest flags is getting in your head too much and being mean to yourself. It's not going to help you get anywhere. It's not going to help you find a job any quicker. And if you get yourself depressed, then you're not going to network. You're not going to interview well. You're not going to, do any of that. So definitely trying to avoid that as much as possible. And then I guess red flags from others, it's just, the ghosting. If people start telling you, why are you even applying for that, or some kind of negative comments like that, you want people that are going to tell you, not always yes people. You don't necessarily want a yes person, because you want people to tell you. So like, Suzanne, you're a great person for this. And obviously you've had your background is you tell people like, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, but I'm not going to just tell you you're doing it wrong. Let me show you why, and let me show you what you could do instead. That's constructive criticism, right? And I was an art student in college, so we had to have slightly thicker skin to take these constructive criticisms, but it was like, you can't just say, oh, I don't like it. Well, why don't you like it? Use art terms. Yeah, use art terms so you can tell your classmates why you don't like it, how they can improve it. Is it the color combination? Is it the brush strokes, whatever it may be? Like, use terminology, give them a criticism that they can actually take with them and do something with. They can't do anything with, I don't like it. That's a personal, again, going back to the feelings, that's personal feelings. That's not data. That's not numbers. That's not something I can take with me and do something with, right? And I think that's the same with people in your network, with recruiters, with anybody that you're talking to during your job search.
People in your
family, of course. Again, I know it was mentioned, sometimes they don't mean to come off toxic, but that's how you're taking it in, right? To you, that's toxicity. You don't need more negativity in already a very intense, probably already negative situation that you're in, because you need to solve it, right? People have bills to pay, people have lives to live, and you need money to do that, and jobs give you that money. Now, if you could do something you like to do and earn money for it, obviously that's the cherry on top, but you don't need people giving you more roadblocks. You need people that will help you remove those roadblocks and give you the tools to remove those roadblocks. Yeah.
So all solid advice. So for me, some behaviors to watch out for. One, make sure that when I say maintaining a schedule, I recognize that job seekers, it's going to be very difficult, but I'm talking about, don't start sleeping in till noon, staying up till 3:00 in the morning. Watch your alcohol consumption. It's very easy to be like, oh, I don't have to work tomorrow. I'm going to go out with, my friend and party all night, because everybody has one of those friends, right? And you really want to be mindful of that, right? Because that is really going to drain you. So I had a customer once who really did a job search brilliantly. She was laid off after 20 something years in the same company. So talk about someone who the job world had changed tremendously. We talked about it. She had some time to take to do what we call stalk the job market, right? So she took that time. It was about 5 months stalking the job market. She had literally learned so much about what she wanted with clarity, that she had gone from sourcing, applying, and landing a job offer in 10 days. almost unheard of. Now, the part that's really amazing about this story is she was a woman who was over 50. And by all means, in technology, she should have been unemployed for at least 9 months looking for a job. But she brilliantly went out and did this job search. So I met with her after and I said, hey, you know what? I want to have a pretty detailed conversation with what did you do? Because I believe that you can learn a lot from the failures as well as the successes. So that is why I talk to everybody about, hey, what worked really well for you and what didn't work. And one of the things she said to me was she had to, in her job search, cut out all of the toxic people. She had to find job search buddies or friends, which is one of the behaviors I would say engage in. And she had a very real conversation with me that she had to cut out a very close family member of hers during her job search, not like forever. She was very clear of that. But this person was just so negative that she could not engage with them during her job search time, right? And I think the concept that she threw out, and I think it's a concept that is pretty well known as a psychic vampire, right? They just kind of suck everything out of you. And she went on to tell me, like, this person is very, their whole life is about them. Like, I have to always lift them up. So in a time where I needed resiliency myself, I couldn't have that, right? And Maria Vanessa, you just brought that up, right? Making sure that you are surrounding yourself with individuals who will lift you up, who will help you kick over the barriers and not put barriers up, right? So important. So last question, and then we're going to go for some question and answer. I'm going to go into the chat. I know we're probably a little bit over, so I hope none of you have a hard stop, but we're going to go just for a little bit longer. I always generally run over. I think I talk too much. We talked about networking. Right? We talked about at Computer Coach every Tuesday, we teach a different job search strategy webinar, including how to successfully just apply online, because people use that strategy. It is not my favorite. I think everybody who knows me knows that. If you've ever come to a seminar that I've talked on, you know that it's not my favorite, but I know that people have to use it, right? How can professional networking and building connections support resilience during a job search? And Maria Vanessa, I'm going to start with you because one thing I know about you is, and one of the things that job seekers say a lot is networking is expensive. But I know when I first met you that you were on a very tight budget. And I don't know that you ever told me that, but I knew you were on a very tight budget and you were out networking and you were doing it brilliantly and it wasn't breaking your bank. So you weren't out buying like $10 drinks, like you really were networking successfully when we first met. So talk to us about how professional networking and building connections can support resilience during your job search and how you were able to successfully do it on such a tight budget, because that is one thing job seekers often think it's too expensive.
Yeah, I never personally understood that. I mean, you have to have at least one or two already professional looking outfits. They don't have to be super business to be professional. I have some dresses that are professional and they're not super dressy dresses, some slacks and a nice, blouse. So that already, I didn't have to, buy new clothes. Yeah, talk about budget. I lived with my soon-to-be in-laws and my fiance. We shared one car. I did the boot camp. I did because it was free, though they made you jump through quite a few fire dosed rings. But yeah, I tried to do as much free networking as I could. And a lot of the networking in Tampa Bay is free. A lot of them actually even have free drinks and food at the event. So I got to have a free dinner and a free drink while networking. I did try to keep it to a certain radius, so I'm not driving far with, gas or tolls or whatnot. So I did keep it to, back then I was in Seminole Heights, so I did keep it to that area as best as I could. And
that's a great tip though, Maria. I just want to point out that that's a great tip, right? Finding networking that doesn't require tolls. So looking within your area and where can you network? Because networking for job success doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, I have to go, for you, Maria Vanessa, only to events that have Scrum Masters, because both of your jobs came from non-Scrum Masters. And so finding events that don't require tolls or are within your little, 5 mile, 6, 7 mile radius is a great tip. I just want to make sure our friends take that away.
Yeah. That's really what I tell people is, just don't be afraid to go network. It's literally, you can find lots of networking events that are free, that have the free food and drinks. You have meetups that you can learn at. So it doesn't always have to be about specifically network. You can network at some of these and learn at the same time or see a speaker at the same time, right? I just was part of the board that hosted St. Pete B-Sides, and I always volunteer at Tampa B-Sides. Well, not everybody can drive all the way to USF if they're over here on the Bay, or vice versa. If they're over there, they're not going to want to come to the St. Pete. But having those local events are great for people to attend to. Now, those do have tickets that you have to pay for. But what I'm saying is, you don't always have to go to every event just because it's a big deal, just because everybody's going. If it's not near to you, I would pick and choose something that's near that is going to be a good event. And if you don't know where to go, if you're not good at networking, I have a couple of friends that I tell all the time, let me know. I will go, I will meet you there. I'm not, obviously I'm not shy, and I will introduce you to people. I will help you network. So when you do go to an event by yourself, hopefully you already know at least one person there, right? And that's what actually has made networking even easier over the years. I know at least a dozen people at every event now, minimum, because I constantly say hi to people that I've met in previous, events and previous networking. And if I don't have a ride, which has happened recently, I ask people, hey, are you going to this event? Are you going to that event? And try to hitch a ride with someone. And people are usually, if it's not out of their way, they don't mind.
No,
so
people
again,
love
another
having someone
thing.
to go with.
Exactly. And like, they don't have to show up. They don't
Yeah.
show up by themselves, or they don't have to drive there by themselves. I think there's so many ways to do networking for free and to help you in the process.
I just want to tag on to, you said some events do charge, but as a job seeker tip, you can often email the organizers and they will give you a free ticket if you just tell them, look, I'm in a job search, my budget is really tight. Do you have any complimentary tickets, or can I volunteer? And they will often give out a free ticket. And that is true for chamber events, tech events, any type of networking events. Conferences will give you free passes to their expo hall where you can get out and network. So really expensive conferences, they'll give you passes to expo halls. Maybe you have to volunteer, but you'll still get a comp ticket. I run volunteers at several tech conferences in Tampa, and we are constantly looking for volunteers, and you get free admission at all of the conferences. So I love those. Christian, what do you think? How can we use professional networking and building connections to support our resilience during a job search?
Yeah, one of the things I put in the chat is one of the best pieces of advice I got was don't let your resume be the first thing people learn about you, which means that when you just fire off your resume, you have no face, you have no personality. And I know when you're so itching to get to the next step, like one of the first things you want to do is shove your resume into somebody's hand. But like, honestly, you should do something to make yourself a bit more memorable. And then that way, anything that puts you to the, a little further up in the line, oh, that's, so-and-so, I met her at this event. I remember you. If you have some sort of, gosh, I can't remember. I talked to Roland one time, and there was some sort of inside joke I had with Roland. And just having that inside joke is like, okay, I got a mental connection there. The job I ended up getting after the 9 months was at ConnectWise. And I remember seeing someone at church who was wearing a ConnectWise polo. And so I asked him, I said, I'm interested in the company. Do you like working there? He said, yeah. I said, all right, well, I'll probably apply. And he said to me, he said, well, if you don't get it the first time, just apply again. I said, okay, thank you. And so I applied the first time. I didn't get it. So I applied again, and I did get it. And it turns out that his daughter and my son are in Cub Scouts together, and we've become good friends in the years since. But just going out and having that personal connection, that little bit of a pep talk from a stranger could have been the sliding door of whether I applied again or not.
Christian, you just brought up something that I want to point out to our friends today. Networking does not necessarily just have to be, oh, I went to this professional whatever, right? You just pointed out that your son and somebody's daughter, I think, were in Cub Scouts together. And that is networking right there. You'll often hear me tell the story. I took cooking classes at Publix Aprons, which I highly recommend, for a year. Not because of me, but because my significant other is a phenomenal cook. I am not. Okay. So just let me put that out there. But while I was there, I met the CIO of one of the largest tech companies in Tampa Bay. We were paired up together, chopping carrots. That person is no longer in Tampa Bay, but being able to network with that individual obviously helped me help people in my network so much. And that was not at like your latest meetup, your tech conference. That was taking a cooking class. We were boiling water, cutting carrots together. I don't even remember. So there's networking opportunities all around us.
I said I keep that journal of like daily effort and stuff like that. And what's really cool, one of the confusing things for people in the job search right now is no one can tell you how the story is going to end for you. You won't be out of the forest until you find your way out, right? But if you kind of keep track with that journal, it's so cool to look back and be like, oh yeah, I went to that thing and I met that person and that hooked me up with that person. To see how it connected, it's really cool.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is the Winston Churchill, right? If you're walking through hell, keep walking. I think that has a lot to do with resilience in a job search. There is going to be light at the end. You are going to find a job. If you know the skills you need to do a job search and you are getting out, and most importantly, what we're hearing, telling your friends, your family, and your network, tell everybody around you the type of job you're looking for. They can help you. If you just say, well, I don't really know what I want to do, but I'm looking for something, nobody can help you because you have not defined to anyone what you want. If you know with clarity what you're looking for, people will start sending you referrals left and right because I wholeheartedly believe people naturally want to help. All right, Alyssa, what do you have? What are your tips? I know it's hard.
Yeah, I have a great example from this week, actually. So I work with multiple financial advisors at Northwestern Mutual, some that I've known for 8 years. And one of them recently reached out to me and said, hey, I got connected to this person who graduated from school and recently relocated to Tampa. She doesn't really know anybody here. And I've been following your podcast and I see that you really like talking about job searching. Do you think you'd be willing to like meet her or call her and just see what she's looking for and see if you can help? And I was like, I would love to do that. I'll meet her for coffee. And the whole premise of me making this podcast, I call it Intern because I like to talk about internships, but it's all about helping people intern. Because when it was my turn to find a job, I was relying on people, but now it's my turn to help other people find a job, right? So I met her for coffee over the summer. It was probably like May or June. And she was from like the Northeast where I don't know anyone. She was looking for a job in HR. And somebody earlier said something about HR. Recruiting doesn't always sit under HR. I don't report to HR. I don't work with anybody in HR. Recruiting at our firm is completely separated. So I know a lot of people that work in HR though from my professional network. So at my past job that I worked in tech, I was like, hey, let me connect you to this person who is super involved with an organization called HR Tampa. They have meetups all the time. I'm sure she would meet with you over Zoom. So like, let me just connect you. They met. I introduced her to a couple other people and said, I may not be the right person to help you, but I know a ton of people. I've been here for over 30 years. So let me introduce you. She went to a bunch of networking events, met a bunch of people, ended up applying for a position. She told me she booked an interview with my help with her resume. I was like, awesome, so excited. I prepped her for the interview and I just got a call that she got the offer and they want me to be a professional reference for her. And so I just did the reference check yesterday. So I got no compensation from that. I got nothing out of it other than that I helped a person And now I'm like, yay, I have a friend out of this. I get to take her out and celebrate, and she doesn't know anybody here that can do that for her. And this could make or break the beginning of her career, all because I was like, I can't help you, but I know a ton of people who could probably help you more than I can. So for me, it's really just being a resource to people in ways that you can do without even really putting a ton of effort, right? I met her for coffee once, and I've talked to her on the phone a few times when I'm driving home from work. It doesn't really take a ton of effort to make a difference in somebody's career journey. Absolutely.
And there's so many people that are willing to do it if, again, job seekers know with clarity what it is they're looking for. And since it's only like, well, now 22 of our closest friends today on with us, I will tell you, HR Tampa has their annual conference coming up. So there is a tip and a takeaway right there. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an amazing conversation. Alyssa, Christian, Maria, Vanessa, Danielle, thank you for putting this together. This has been such a great, insightful conversation. We have so many great takeaways.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.